Before we start rolling into tonight's festivities, I just want to make a short speech as the MC for tonight. For those that don't know me, I'm Jonathan, one of Nick's medical school classmates, or as his godfather calls me, Dr. Athabasca. I've never MC'd at a wedding before, but I figured that I had a few key tasks to achieve in this role. Firstly, and most importantly, I had to make sure Lac Lemmy closed its blackjack tables for a few short hours so Andy and others could attend tonight. Secondly, for the festivities, I had brought, prospective wedding workers to Julia, an interior decorator Nick with his Man U jersey and Star Wars memorabilia, as well as makeup artist Marty, but suffice to say that they didn't make the cut. Lastly, I had to make sure all the CO2 guns were booked and unavailable in the Ottawa area to prevent Nick from enjoying his DJ set too much tonight. I couldn't be happier tonight for Nick to marry his queen, Julia, and marry into a family with the biggest queen music fanfare. Like the marriage of ENT and orthopedic surgery together in Module O at the General Hospital, these two were made for each other. I've seen Nick be lifted up in happiness with Julia next to his side in medical school and residency, and the same goes for Julia in treacherous COVID tax seasons. I also couldn't be happier for these two families to join in love. Two families who I've gotten the pleasure to know with big hearts, big hands, and bigger mouths to feed. Families that have touched the lives of so many in Toronto, Ottawa, and Sudbury, including all of us here today. Even though they may replace your childhood bedrooms with a 1,600 bottle wine cellar, these two family trees, now tied together in marriage, love you more than anything, Nick and Julia. Sorry, a little nervous. To this true love, we all join you tonight, Nick and Julia, to celebrate. To the Hamptons for a bachelorette party, to Vegas for a bachelor party, and of course, the NAC for a wedding. We're all here for the two of you. With those distances, we would travel even further if you ever need us by your side more than that. So I ask all of you here today, please raise your glass to that fact, and here's the toast, Nick and Julia's amazing love and future together.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
We're going to begin some speeches, and please welcome the parents of the bride, Sue and Andy, for their speech.
Hi, everybody. Andy and I, obviously the father and mother of the bride, would like to welcome everyone here tonight and express our heartfelt thank you for joining us in this wonderful celebration of the love between Julia and Nick. I brought Kleenex because I have a feeling I'm going to have a problem. Anyways, at this time, I'd just like to make one special welcome to Julia's two grandmothers, Nana and Noni. You both look absolutely beautiful tonight. And we would also like to acknowledge my dad, who is in long-term care and unable to attend. But we know he would be immensely proud of you, Julia, his only granddaughter, and Nick on this special day. He loves you both. So when we were asked to make a speech, which actually is our second one this year, so we were excited and nervous at the same time. But as we started putting our thoughts together, our hearts led the way. And I promise you, Julia, I also focused on keeping the speech short, as I do tend to talk a lot. I still remember the rules when going to the shopping center together. Mom, when you see somebody you know, say hi and walk away. So, Julia, the first thing we want to say is that you look absolutely stunning in your wedding gown. Our tears of happiness came to surface when we first saw you, myself, as we were getting ready, and your father, when he had the first reveal with you. You have grown from a beautiful little girl into a beautiful young woman. As many of you may already know, I'm sure you all know, Julia is our baby. She has 3 older brothers, Nathan, Ryan, and Justin. Being the youngest and only girl contributed to her growth into a strong woman. She carried this strength to all of the sports she played, especially basketball, where she was always a leader and a captain on the team, and to her accomplishments as a graduate of Masters of Accounting and her CPA designation. And we were fortunate that she has used her intelligence, strength, and determination as an asset in our accounting firm, where she has developed into a leader and a mentor. We are so proud of you. Okay. Whoops. What's this other sheet there? Julia, when you met Nick, we could sense the deep connection immediately. Both of you are family-oriented and were respectful of each other's journey to become professionals. And Nick, we are so fortunate that Julia fell in love with you. Today, you look absolutely stunning in your suit, and complement the suit with your amazing smile and look of love in your eyes. And this is the part that's really fun now.
So, the first time I met Nick, well, not the first time I met Nick, but the first time he came over to the house, right, on a date with Julia, he walks in with a Baltimore Ravens hat on. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. That's sort of like Montreal and Toronto, but maybe worse. I got to give him credit for doing that, right? But we've come to love you, Nick, right? I'm tearing up, so I can't read this. Yep. And we're very thankful you're going to spend the rest of your life with our daughter. But if you really want to be part of the family, you have to wear this when you come over to the house. Genuine Pittsburgh Steelers hat.
Oh, you have to hold it. Oh, you are? Okay. So poor Nick. I'm actually the one who thought of putting that into the speech, believe it or not. So Nick, we are so proud of your accomplishments in medicine and want you to know that we are here to support you as you continue your journey. And your personality blends well with Julia's strong personality, and we appreciate your respect for her goals and accomplishments as well. We love you like one of our children and welcome you into our family. Oh boy. Okay. And Stan and Bridget, we're so fortunate that Julia has wonderful in-laws. You have always treated her with love and respect. This is much appreciated by Andy and I, and we're also blessed to have you and your family in our life now as well. And given the number of children between our two families, it's one big happy family. Julia and Nick, you both inspire us. You have grown as a couple and overcome obstacles and distances. The love and happiness you share and respect for each other is the greatest gift we could ask as parents for our daughter. And as we are now 61, an orthopedic surgeon in our family will definitely be appreciated. Now we would like to raise a toast to celebrate the marriage of Julia and Nick. We wish you all the love and happiness that a marriage will bring to your lives. And you say.
And in the words of Julia's Croatian grandfathers, Daj Bože.
Hello. Just a friendly reminder to soak in some of the amazing wedding photos of the family on the back table over there, as well as to sign the guest book. But I would also like to introduce the parents of the groom's speech with Brigitte and Stan.
Hello, I'm Stan, my wife Bridget. For those of who don't know us, we're parents of the groom.
Also known as Sabier. Bonsoir, bienvenue à nos familles et nos amis. Plusieurs d'entre vous se sont déplacés pour venir célébrer avec nous et nous l'apprécions beaucoup.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us on this special day to celebrate the marriage of Julia and Nicholas. Quite a few people from Sudbury, thank you. GTA, Kingston, Montreal, Timmins, Winnipeg, Ireland, Washington, D.C., Boston, and a few from Tennessee. How about that?
We all feel very honored to have so many family and friends here because really at the end of the day, that is what matters.
30 years ago, we were up at a similar podium giving a speech as newlyweds. Time does fly. We left Ottawa in 1996 with a 9-month-old and made a great life for ourselves and our family in Sudbury, being blessed with 5 fantastic children. and here we are today.
Nicholas is the first of our brood. We are proud of all our kids, but today is definitely Julia and Nicholas' day. We would like to congratulate them and wish them a long, happy, prosperous marriage. We are proud of Nicholas and Julia's accomplishments, both successful young professionals and each of them following in their parents' footsteps. Julia in accounting and business, Nicholas in medicine and orthopedic surgery. Stan's just basically mostly happy, though, that you're off the payroll.
Yeah, kind of. Anyways. So we welcome Julia to our family. My wine buddy, my California Salton Sea Mojave Desert four-wheeling partner. That's a story for another time. From the first time that we were introduced to you as the girlfriend, we knew that Nicholas struck gold. We watched the love you have for each other grow and flourish. And here we are today. Thank you for coming into Nicholas's life and ours. It didn't take you long to blend in with the rest of our crew. They can be pretty crazy, especially on those family weekends at the cottage. I did speak with Nicholas at the beginning of your relationship, and I reminded him that he was dating my accountant's daughter. I warned him. I said, don't mess this up for me. Yeah. I just couldn't fathom having to divorce Andy if it didn't work out.
Nicholas, I've known you since before you were born. It was clear from the beginning that Julia was the one. We are very proud to welcome Julia into our family. She went from a baby of her family to a big sister of 4 siblings, and she has easily found her voice and our place in all of our hearts.
Andy and Sue, we would like to thank you for how you've welcomed Nicholas into your family. Nathan, Ryan, and Justin, you are what Nicholas never had, older brothers. And Nicholas constantly reminds his siblings of his place in our family as the one being the oldest. And I want you guys now to remind him that he is the baby in your family and no extra privileges or perks.
To Sue and Andy and the Sausage Boys, you all really already all feel like family, but now it is official.
Nicholas, you are our first of 5 wonderful kids, and we love you very much. We've seen you grow up to become the person you are today. This was obviously thanks to the excellent job your mother and I did raising you. It wasn't an easy job. And if you thought you're going to get off easy in this speech, you're wrong.
I remember the day we brought you home from the hospital. We were so happy and excited. That quickly changed to a feeling of being very overwhelmed as you cried all the time, slept an hour at a time, and maybe a total of 6 hours a day. But then suddenly, after 3 months, it was like a light switch went off, and you became a happy-go-lucky baby, toddler, young man, teenager, not so happy, but then it got better again. I think really, though, you stopped crying because you kind of thought, maybe I want some siblings. So it worked. It worked.
You're the first of our 5 children. Most would think that this was an advantage. But no, Nicholas felt the opposite. And we heard it many times. He felt we were too strict. Hey, listen, we were new at parenting, and we felt that we were just needing to protect you from harmful things. So we may have been a little late in involving you in things such as hockey. At a young age, Nicholas was enrolled in karate with Nick Casio. You were such a good little karate guy. You were. He got the blue belt and everything, but one day he put his foot down. He says, I'm not going to karate. I want to play hockey, like all of his buddies at school. So then we eventually gave in. At the age of 10, he started House League hockey, and he blames us now for not enrolling him earlier, as he's convinced to this day that that's the reason he never made it to the NHL. Son, you're a good hockey player, but you're not that good. The only person Nicholas ever played hockey with that made it close to the NHL was Connor McDavid's girlfriend. And that's no disrespect to Locke, who's in the audience here, but you were on this. You weren't on the scene back then.
He was so upset when I chased off the girls and didn't let him date in grade 8. He was also mortified that he didn't get a cell phone till he was 16. How many times did we hear, "It is unfair, you're ruining my life, I'll never have any friends, I'll never get..." Well, it looks like you did okay. We're all good.
So, in closing, I've done some research on wedding speeches by parents to the groom, and I think we've covered most of it. Some say that we are to bestow the two of you advice for a happy marriage, and I've seen analogies such as marriage is like a red wine, it gets better with age.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
yes, there's good wine and bad wine.
Yeah. And marriage is like a roller coaster. It has ups and downs, and you'll get thrown around and you get scared to death, but you don't want to get off that ride. So there are many analogies.
Another simple piece of advice is to enjoy every moment. Don't rush it. It does go by too fast, just like that roller coaster ride.
Nicholas, we are happy you have found in Julia a very strong, resilient, supportive, and loving partner, and we expect nothing less from you for her.
Love and cherish you both.
So where's my wine here? So here we go. Please raise your glasses. Cheers and 100 lat, which means 100 years in Polish. To Julia Nicholas.
The night is rolling, and I hope the drinks are rolling too, but I also want to introduce our next speech by the best man, Nick.
Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Nick Cassio, one of Nick's close friends. Now, I want to be upfront about my speech. This isn't going to be a long one. For the bride's wishes, I've limited my drinking until I'm done, and I don't want to prolong it. So, I thought the best way to go about this speech was to take you through my history of knowing Nick. From when we met at 6, 7 years old, became best friends, the times our families spent together at camp, him being the guiding light for all his siblings, and the night he met Julia. Nick and I met in early 2001 in March break in Boyne, Michigan. We were in the same group for ski lessons. From there, we became friends. It wasn't just us who became friends. Our parents grew close, and so did our siblings. We've become a big extended family. We played on the same hockey team, suffered through karate in our early years, and continued our love for skiing on our father and son ski trips to Banff and Whistler. Even though we'd been skiing since 6 years old, Stan was so confident in Nick's abilities, he kept him in full-day lessons until he was 16. Little did he know that wasn't a thing. And Nick got in trouble when I convinced him to skip out at lunch and spend the rest of the day with me. He was grounded at 16. Nick had to experience the hard aspects of life growing up under the strict Polish reign of Stanislaw II. He walked so his siblings could run. Nick will claim he had the strictest life growing up and endured everything so his siblings could get away with anything. Nick once snuck out to a pool party in grade 8, with it ending short, when his parents found out and he was picked up early with all of his siblings in the car. Nick is the oldest of his siblings, allowing him to excel when they played together in the early years, be it minning sticks, boxing them out during basketball when he stood a few feet taller, or showing them how to hurdle the nets at the tennis court. We still remember the day he was showing off and his back foot caught the net, sending him to the ground. He shook it off as he was a tough older brother. As they get older, the playing field has been leveled, and he is no longer the best when they compete, although he will never admit it. As you all know, the Tubins are a large and very close family. My fondest memories of Nick are when our families are together at their camp and skied on Lake Wanapitei. When Nick is at camp, there's a certain spark within the family. He always ensures games are being played, be it late night euchre or a big game of Pass the Ace, with him queuing up Tippy Trumpet for a showdown. Setting up a game of spike ball, tennis, or baseball at the community center. Getting everyone on the boat to go surfing, ensuring we're all having a good time. He is the one to stoke the bonfire with a dozen logs, pouring bottles of wine, or a stiff rye and coke. Nick always ensures everyone is together and good times are being had. He is a true family man. I'm going to wrap this up with how we ended here. at this beautiful wedding for Nick and Julia. We're going back to the summer of 2015. It was a fun summer with many parties at Kayla's parents' house, usually ending with us going downtown for a Sudbury Saturday night. One of the night, get it going. One of the nights we went to Kayla's for some drinks before we went downtown. Nick and a group of us met up beforehand, before we headed out, all in our black t-shirts, khaki pants, and our finest sneakers. Backpacks full of beer, we headed out to the pre-drink. And when we got there, there was this new girl. I had known her from when we played hockey together as kids, but Nick had never really hung out with her. As the night started off, I cracked a beer, and it spilled all over the new girl, Julia. As you could imagine, she was thrilled. It was a great start to the night. We ended up heading to the Grand, a staple bar in the Sudbury community. Yes. We had a booth, and Nick snuck in close to Julia. As the night progressed, his arm ran around her, and the rest is history. It is fitting that a true Sudbury love story started at the Grand. Nick's love for Julia is unconditional. They compliment her, and she keeps him humble. When they started dating, he had a certain spark, and it hasn't faded. We know it never will. Nick, we're brothers by choice. I am honored you chose me to be your best man. You're an amazing friend, and I know you'll be an amazing husband as you start your family. I love you and Julia, and I'm excited for what's to come. Now, everyone, please raise your glass as we cheers to Nick and Julia. Cheers, cheers.
To keep the night rolling after that amazing roast of Nick, I would like to welcome the maid of honor speech, Sue Hannah.
Hi, everyone. For those of you who I haven't had the chance of meeting yet, my name is Sue Hannah. Before I get started with my speech, I just wanted to take a quick moment to say thank you to the parents of the bride and the groom for all of their hospitality and generosity and all of the events leading up to the big day. We have all had so much fun being able to celebrate Nick and Julia and are so grateful for all the memories that we'll have to look back on. So a big thank you to Sue, Andy, Bridget, and Stan. And another big round of applause for how beautiful the bride looks tonight. Nick, you also look very handsome. Julia and I met during our first semester at Waterloo, 9 years later, and I couldn't be happier to be standing here today to celebrate the beautiful relationship that Nick and Julia have built together. The first time Julia and I ever hung out, we went to the first ever Drake night at the Raptors game. After this, we quickly realized we had so much in common and we became the closest of friends. And when I say the closest of friends, I mean that we developed such a close bond that sometimes we didn't even have to talk to each other when speaking. Let me give you a quick example. One time, we were at school speaking with a friend about various topics, and he was so confused when we randomly we stopped speaking to each other because all he heard were the words Volkswagen, debt, some gibberish, and giggles. But in actuality, Julia and I had just said to each other in such few words, "Oh my gosh, did you hear that Volkswagen's debt rating just got downgraded?" "Yeah, I actually did because I saw you retweeted it on Twitter this morning." By the end of school, we barely had to even speak to each other. But this is just one of the many things that I admire about our friendship. I really feel so lucky to have Julia as such a close friend in my life. Even though we are the same age, sometimes I feel like she's the big sister that I never had. She is wise beyond her years, incredibly mature, and one of the most generous, caring, and loyal people that I've ever known. She is the best listener in my toughest moments and never forgets to tell me how ridiculous I'm being in my silliest moments. I know that no matter how far we are in distance, Julia is always there for me. Over the years, I've also seen her treat everyone important in her life with the same care, love, and loyalty, and I know she'll continue to do no differently in her marriage. Now on to Nick. My first impression of Nick was that he was incredibly kind, friendly, and humble. All of these things are still true, But as I've gotten to know him better, I've also learned how much he loves watches. So everyone, if you could please do me a huge favor tonight, and when speaking with the groom, please don't forget to give him a compliment on his newly acquired Rolex. It will be much appreciated. I've also seen how funny and goofy he can be, whether it's having a laugh at a family dinner or when he would come to visit us in Waterloo. He can always be found putting a smile on Julia's face. Even when Julia isn't in the best of moods sometimes, or when Nick is ignoring her while playing his race car game, or if he's just spending more time with her brothers than with her. I always love seeing how Nick can still make Julia laugh. But I think what I admire the most about Nick and Julia's relationship is that they're both each other's biggest cheerleaders. Whether it was during accounting exams, med school exams, or any of the other surprises that life throws their way, I've watched them both be such amazing supports for each other. And most importantly, I love how you both always celebrate each other's accomplishments like they're your own. Julia and Nick, you complement each other perfectly, and there's really no other way to put it. And it really makes me so happy to be able to stand by you on your special day. Oh man. I'm so honored to call such good people my friends, and I wish you all of the happiness in the world in this next chapter of your lives. So with that, I would like to invite everyone to please raise their glasses to Nick and Julia.
After their beautiful ceremony, their beautiful vows, I would like to welcome Nick and Julia up to the microphone.
Thanks to everyone for coming and joining us on this special day. You've all played a crucial role in us being here today, and we can't wait for what the future holds with each and every one of you that are here. A special thanks to Suhana, who has been the greatest friend since university. I don't know what I would have done without you planning this wedding, or just navigating life in general.
And Nick, thanks for not only being my friend, but a brother. I hope to keep celebrating life's big moments with you. We couldn't speak in front of you all today without mentioning 4 special men that shaped the way we are today.
Papa, Grandpa,
Grandpapa, and Jadek. From all the stories passed down, one universal thing was their love and pride of their families. We know how much they would have loved to be here today. We are lucky to have our 4 grandmothers here.
Noni, Nana,
Grandmama, and Babcha. We're so thankful to have you all here today to celebrate with us. And I even shaved my face today for you, Noni.
When I first met Nick's family for dinner 8 years ago, everyone was so young, I couldn't tell anyone apart, especially Julian and Felix. Since then, I've gained 4 younger siblings that I never had, and I really learned what that meant. Eat faster if you want any hopes of seconds. Get in line for food right away. And everything you do is watched under a microscope that's going to be brought up years later when you least expect it. Most of all, I gained 4 siblings that will always play games and sports with Nick when I don't want to, because they've had to do it their entire lives, thank God. That being said, I'm so thankful to all of you that have welcomed me into your family like I was one of your own right from the beginning. Stan and Bridget, thank you so much for all the love and support that you've given Nick and I. We would not be where we are today without it.
So this is already spoken, this story, but I'm gonna have to give the actual version of what happened. So the first time I brought Julie home, I obviously introduced her to my parents, and I got the same ride out from my mom. No staying later than this, be a gentleman, blah, blah, blah. The stuff that the usual stuff. But my dad usually never really said anything to me when I brought a girl home, but for some reason, Julie left, I'm going to sleep, and my dad comes out of the woodworks and pulls me aside. I'm like, uh-oh, like what did I do? Pulls me aside, and he didn't just tell me, like, don't mess this up for me. The real version was, do not F this up for me. Little did I know he was married to a fantastic accountant, Andy, and they'd had a long working relationship prior to me meeting Julia. But I'm standing here today, I haven't F'd this up, and I think your accounting fees are getting waived now, so. in all seriousness, I'm very excited to finally call 3 of one of my greatest friends brothers. And thanks to Andy and Sue for always welcoming me as part of their own. I promise to try to keep Julia as happy as possible, an impossible task. Continue to eat 6 times my body weight at dinner, and try to help you make a dent in that wine collection.
So without further ado, we want you all to raise your champagne glasses. Here's to the memories of those who aren't here with us today. Here's to the memories we share with all of you. And here's to the memories we'll make tonight. Cheers.
Before we end the speeches, there's one little bit left we have. It's a little bit of daddy daycare time. So I want to hand over the mic to Andy and Stan.
Andy and I are up here to come clean.
We're going to do the right thing. We're going to do the right thing right now.
We have known each other professionally and personally for over 20 years. We initially met at a charity golf tournament, and at that time, I was with a different accounting firm. And I told Andy of some issues I was having and that I really wasn't pleased with this whole situation with this other accounting firm. So Andy gave me some good advice. He said, basically, ditch the firm I was with and join the Sostrich firm. And he said that we are like a family and we will treat you as a family member. Little did I know what that true meaning was. So for 18 holes, I got to know Andy and his crew. Chucker, you stood out. There you go. Yeah. So I said, how could I go wrong? So it was an easy decision, and I moved my account over, and I really haven't looked back. So that first day, I got to know Andy, and he got to know me. We shared stories about our kids, and I discovered he and Sue had 4 children. And at that time, Bridget and I also had 4. Now we have 5, Kluzi. So Andy, I thought he was joking a little bit, maybe a bit too much red wine. When he suggested, he said, you know what, maybe his Julia and my Nicholas, being close in age, could maybe someday be husband and wife. And I went along with it. So I got a sleeve of Pro V1s. They're good golf balls. So I thought, maybe is this like a small dowry? So we fostered our professional and personal relationship. And we had many meetings. And one meeting I remember was at Christmas. I was at the Ottawa, which is our golf club in Sudbury, and Andy and his staff were there. And I was there having lunch with my friend John. So Andy came over, and right behind him was this big man, and it was his father, Nick. So I met Nick, and he invited me over to join them at their table. And I obliged, and I enjoyed that afternoon drinking. A lot of Amarone, and I was surprised to find out Andy's father, Nick, had a lot of prior knowledge about my oldest son, also named Nick, and he knew that he was in similar age to his granddaughter, Julia, and offered me another sleeve of golf balls. And he winked. And I thought, was he aware of what we talked about? So we wished each other Merry Christmas. Then I went home, somehow. I staggered home with my second sleeve of Pro V1s. So every year, Andy and I would get together, review financials. And the conversation was 90% talk about family. Like we chewed the fat about our kids and everything. 10% was business. I really don't have a complicated account, so it's very easy. So I would tell Andy how Nicholas was growing up to be a pretty nice young man. He was focused on going to medicine. Andy would tell me how Julia was doing, studying to be a CPA one day, joining the family business. So I left his office many times with more things added to the dowry. Stationery, more golf balls, a bottle of wine, it was great. So the years go by, Andy had yet to meet Nicholas. And I had yet to meet Julia. So we set up a bit of a ruse that we could see each other, future son and daughter-in-laws. So I brought the kids, to Andy's house one day on the premise to play some basketball because he had borrowed one of our basketball things and never gave it back. So Andy met Nicholas, and gave me away, the approval. Julia was not available that day, so I had to wait. So with Andy's approval, he gave kids basketballs. They all left home with, came with a basketball, further adding to this dowry. So later, Andy brought Julia to see me. This is several years later, after she rolled her ankle at a basketball game. She really didn't have much of a significant injury, but we couldn't tell the real reason she was there. So I was impressed how confident she was. I determined that she'd be a perfect match for Nicholas. They were still too young to spring our plans on them, so Andy and I had to wait and continue for the perfect day. We had to keep him in the dark.
That's right.
So in 2015, Nicholas was in his second year sciences at Laurentian, and Julie was in her third year at Waterloo. I met Andy, and in our conversations, we discovered that each of them was currently unattached. It was right, time to develop the action plan. So Andy's intelligence revealed that Julie would be in town, and we enlisted the help of Nick Cassio to get Julia to a mutual friend's house so they could actually meet. And it happened at Kayla's house. They met, who is here today. We thank you, but we apologize for keeping you in the dark. So it was a success.
So we've told the story of the dowry. So you all witnessed today in that other room, Julia and Nick signing papers and witnessing papers. That doesn't really make it official. What really makes it official is the last payment of the dowry. I have to give Stan the last payment of the dowry to make this marriage official. See, it's in our cultures. Stan's Polish, I'm Croatian, Italian. This is how it works. There's a dowry to be made. So I start to think, what can I do? I've got to consummate this somehow. Like normally it's livestock, but I went to Farm Boy. I couldn't get livestock. My cousin Tim here, he's an inspector in the RCMP, and he was in the musical ride. I was going to get a horse, but what are you going to do with a horse? That's a lot of manure, hay. A horse doesn't work. So I'm thinking, what am I going to get Stan? What am I going to do? Then it dawned on me. This is what I'm going to do. A jar of Polish pickles. So now, the marriage is complete. You guys are good to go.
There you go.